Hey, everybody. So there are a lot of questions right now because the economy is about to start opening up again because COVID is near the end and people are beginning to get vaccinated. But we're not there yet, right? People are still in limbo, so to speak. So what should we be doing to think about the future and investing, some basic lessons in investing maybe? Hi, everybody. I'm JR. Welcome to the Artistry of Money. And we are so happy. I'm so happy today to once again be joined by two of my bestie friends, Karen Michaels. Say hi, Karen.
Hi.
And Mr. Todd Vigiletti. Say hi, Todd.
Hello, everyone.
And today we thought it would be a really good idea to talk about some of the basics of investing for artists, for performing artists, or for fine artists who don't really know and have never learned about how to invest for the future, how to think about retirement, how to think about sending their kids to college. So I think it would be really easy if we just sort of started with you guys. If you have any questions for me, if either one of you has a question, we can start with a question.
I guess my first question, JR, would be, so even just have a little, whether it's from unemployment or whether it's from a side gig that you did or whether you're actually back to work again, how do you start if you just don't know anything and you don't know what to do, and what's the best place to start? And can you start with $50 or $100? Is it even worth it to do that at that point? I know for me personally, and probably other performers, it's like, you're kind of putting some stuff away in a total crappy bank savings account earning 0.02%. Even if it's a small amount of money, is there something that we can do that's better than that, even if it's not full, I guess, investing? Or can we?
Sure.
Can we just start with
Sure.
that?
Oh, so thanks for that question, Todd. I think it's a great question because the answer is different today than it was just a few years ago. Today, you can start with Schwab or any of these other brokerage accounts, TD Ameritrade. You can start with literally no minimum. They used to have several thousands of dollars in order to a requirement in order to open an account. And today you can start with no minimum. So if you've got $100, you can open an account and you can invest. What I would recommend you do is invest in an ETF, an exchange traded fund. And I would recommend either the S&P 500, SPY is the symbol, or the NASDAQ 100, QQQ is the symbol. And I would probably, if I had $1,000, I'd probably put $500 in each one. But there is something else going on right now. A lot of younger folks are learning that they can go onto these discussion sites online like Reddit and look at these sites like Wall Street Bets that's on Reddit and sort of jump on to these groups and make money. And I just want to say as a precautionary note that I think most of us have heard these stories that there were some people who started with very, very little money and turned one bet against GameStop or for GameStop against the short sellers of GameStop into $1 million. And I just want to say that that is not an accurate picture of how most people fared in that GameStop situation. One of the companies that was targeted by this group, Wall Street Bets on Reddit, was AMC Entertainment, the theater operating company. And they were ready to declare bankruptcy just a few weeks ago. They've been talking about this for several months.
Right.
They've been prepared to declare bankruptcy. And because of what happened to their stock, they raised just under $1 billion, $950 million. And now the CEO was on CNBC a few days ago saying they're not talking about bankruptcy anymore. They have raised enough money because their stock went up, and it's all the way back down now, but their stock went up and they raised enough to make it through until we open back up and people start going to the theater again. So that sounds like all great news, right? But I've got news to share. I've got 1 second, Todd. I've got bad news to share with you because that $950 million that they raised came from small investors that bought their stock and ended up losing money. So the money came from somewhere, it came from somebody. And so the sort of positive spin that, you can make $1 million betting on GameStop, or, AMC Entertainment no longer needs to go bankrupt because of this. There are losers to this, and there are big losers to this. So I don't look at this as investing at all. I look at this as pure gambling. It's pure speculation.
Wow.
And there is a good part of this, and that's that if you do this and you lose money, or if you do this and you make money, you're learning. So that's good. If you
Right.
take that, if you take that opportunity to say to yourself that I put in $1,000 and I lost it all, or my 1,000 is now worth $100. What did I do wrong? What should I do differently? Then it was probably worth that lesson for you to lose that money. But if you're using money that you need to pay your rent or you need to eat, it's a different situation and you need to be really careful. So Todd, I'm sorry I cut you off there.
I just thought, just for more clarification, since you said AMC got the $950 million and now they're more cash secure, so they don't need to declare bankruptcy, but now that stock has gone back down.
Right.
I guess I just don't understand that basic concept of how did they still maintain that 950 million? Like, how did the people who invested put the money in, get it to that point? Now the stock has gone back down. They've lost, but the company didn't lose. The company still gained. And maybe that's a super dumb question, but I don't quite get how did they prosper when all the investors who put in the money now have not?
Nope, I think it's a great question, Todd. Thank you. It's a very simple concept. So if I think I'm looking at the screen now, I'm probably doing this. I should probably do it this way, right? so as the news spread that AMC Entertainment was a good stock that was going to go up, and a lot of people on Reddit, on Wall Street Bets, were putting money in, the stock price starts to go up, right?
Right.
Stock prices move because of supply and demand of stock. And when there are more buyers than there are sellers of a stock, the stock price starts to move up. And in order to buy in, you've got to pay a higher price. And more people were paying higher and higher prices. When the stock of AMC Entertainment got to a certain level, the company decided to sell some of their own stock.
Oh, I see.
So they sold stock and somebody bought that stock. And then when the stock started going down because there were no more buyers, right? Everybody who read Reddit and everybody who read Wall Street Bets had already put their money in. Now people were saying, uh-oh, it's going down, you better sell. And so people started selling and selling, but AMC happened to sell stock at or near the high, and they took the money off the table. They sold a stock and took the money. And now they're in good shape. But all the people who bought anywhere near the top and held on as it was going down because they thought, well, this is going to turn around, or I don't want to, if I sell the stock now, I'm going to take a loss. So let me just hold on to it. That's why this particular situation with AMC Entertainment and GameStop, and there were a few other BlackBerry, there were a few other stocks. This wasn't investing. This was gambling. So if I may, did that answer your question, Todd?
Oh, definitely, and it makes perfect sense. They had an asset and they sold it at the top dollar, and that's where their money came from. But basically, they pulled themselves out of the game at the right time because they sold what they had at that time.
So let me explain that during this whole time when the price of the stock went up and then turned around and came all the way back down, the underlying company, the situation, nothing changed. There was nothing that should have caused the stock price to go up other than this frenzy that was being built online.
Basically,
so that's why this was gambling. That's what made this speculation. In normal investing, the price of a stock goes up or down because something good or something bad is happening to the company. Does that make sense?
Yes.
If you're investing, you have to remember that you're buying a piece of ownership of a company. You're actually buying that company. Yeah. And the reason you'd buy a company is because you think down the line, it's going to be worth more than it is today, right? You love the stock, you love the products that we can talk about Tesla, for example. Their cars are so popular. People who drive them, people who own them, absolutely love their cars. And so if you were an early buyer of a Tesla car when they first came out 10 years ago or whatever the year was, and you said to yourself, I'm going to buy a share of Tesla, that turned out to be a really good investment because their cars have done so well and become so popular that they're selling more and more cars, and the stock price has really risen, even though they haven't really been very profitable yet because they keep investing all their profits back into the growth of the company because they're expanding, right? They started with a Model S, and then they added the Model X, and then they added the Model 3, and they're on the verge of adding a couple of more models, the Cybertruck. So they're really growing. So all the money that they're making, they're putting back into the company, but their stock price is going up for a reason. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yes,
it does.
definitely.
But I have a question though. So all this happened with the Reddit thing and all that, but shouldn't I didn't, by the way. I kind of wish I did just because it was like fun and exciting. And the dopamine hit would have been cool. But shouldn't I, or shouldn't anyone who bought into that just hang out? Because now that company was reinfused, the potential for getting at least some of your money back is there. And actually the potential for growth is there because, as you have said so eloquently to me, that you have to be in it for the long game.
Right.
Or
so there are kind of two answers to that. One answer is Wall Street was giving AMC Entertainment a value before this Reddit thing happened, right? And so you look at the stock price. Here's how you figure out the value of a company. It's so simple. It's all available online and free. Look at the price of the stock of that company and research the number of outstanding shares. And you multiply the number of outstanding shares by the stock price, and that's the value of the entire company according to Wall Street. And you can do that to every single stock that's publicly traded.
Interesting.
So if you're buying AMC, and let's say let's say, I don't know the numbers, but let's say they went up from $5 to $90.
okay.
And then you bought it at $90 and it went all the way back down to $5. Karen, that's a long way to go before your $5 is going to turn back to $90 based on the company, the economy opening up and people starting to go to movies and buying popcorn. Wall Street is saying right now the stock's worth $5. The company's worth $5 a share. That's what it's worth. So if you bought it at 90 and Wall Street says it's worth $5, you're going to be holding that for a long time. So the second part of the answer is, wouldn't you be better off putting your money somewhere else rather than waiting for the next 10 years for AMC to grow just to get your money back?
And I would argue, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No.
This and thus this whole conversation has begun, because now, as a performer, as a person who is does several jobs in order to create my living, I don't even have $100 to waste. I barely have $5 to waste. And so to me, I listen to this and I'm like, I'm out. I'm so out. No.
Okay.
Right?
So is there something else? Yeah. So is there something else we should do first?
Yeah.
Right.
So
Jim, is there something else?
So let me just say a couple of things. If you happen to work for a job where they have a 401k, please contribute to the 401k. Especially if the Roth 401k is an option for you, and especially if you're younger, especially if you're under, I would say 35. You have to do that. And especially if your company does a match. And I don't know if any of this makes sense to any of you, but
get it.
For those of you talk about that. Let's do that in a future episode.
Absolutely. We can talk about it another time, but this is something you can ask your HR department.
Right.
If your company has a 401k, and if the company offers a match, that's free money that you have to take advantage of. And we should talk about this another time.
Yeah.
But for those entertainers who don't, or artists, right? Fine artists, any kind of actors, anybody who doesn't have a job with a company that pays and has a 401k, you have to think about taking care of your own retirement. You have to think about how to fund your kid going to college, right? And the way to do it is to start investing. And the whole key to this whole thing, and I can tell you this is the key that billionaires know and millionaires know, not just anybody. The whole key to this saving and investing is the difference between what you make and what you spend. And that's, savings. I call that your golden army, and we can talk about that another time. But growing a golden army, that's step one. And then number two, investing your golden army or putting your golden army to work. for you so that it grows and continues to grow and someday can pay you without you working. That's the whole idea behind investing. So if you think that you're going to need to retire and you'd like to retire being able to travel and being able to buy a new car every few years, in other words, to have a decent quality of life other than depending on Social Security. I think we all know that Social Security doesn't give you much of a quality of life, right? You may survive, but you're not going to live very well. So if you think about your retirement and having a nice quality of life when you're older, the key to that is saving and investing. That answer your question, Karen?
It does. And it
it scares the heck out of us.
It scares us, right? Because
right.
I mean, I should qualify this myself, right? As a performer.
Right.
And
right.
even when I had like a weird performing job for a long time here in Vegas, that was like I clocked in, like I had never clocked in. I mean, Jim, honestly, performers like clocking in and an HR department, I'm not really like, what is that?
Yeah.
And so, those are really, that's the disparity. And that was how this conversation, I think, began with you, is that, during this pandemic, so many of us who do not live the traditional life, what in the heck do we do? How do we get through all this? And then after that, now that we're moving, I don't think it's over, but we're moving out of it certainly. And things are going to start coming back.
Right.
What are the steps that I can take now to improve the potential of my future?
I love that question. And I think it all starts with being aware, Karen. You have to be aware. And hopefully we've learned by going through this really rough period. This last year has been rough on a lot of people. And, if you're watching this video, it means you've survived. So that's great. So there are lessons that we've learned. And one of the things we need to do is be aware that there's going to be a time when there's a disruption in our normal lifestyle, in our normal income stream, right? And how do we survive that? If it's a short period of time and something just happened, we got a job and the job got canceled, or the gig got canceled, or I got replaced by my understudy, whatever happened, you have to survive until you get your next gig. That's part of it. But the other part is being aware that when you get older and the gigs dry up, how are you going to survive, right? So
as we dry up, the gigs dry up.
Thank you, Todd.
Okay.
Hopefully not, but that's yeah.
So being aware that you need to be responsible for the future, for your own future, I think is step one. And then out of that awareness has to come questions like, what do I do? And so, Karen, you said, what are my first steps? What should I do? And I think the best advice is, for those of you who are starting with nothing, the best advice is to start small. You have to start saving. And we will talk in a future video about what I call the golden army concept. But you need to start saving a small amount of money and then learning what to do with that money to make it grow, and then how to keep contributing to that money to accelerate that growth over time. And over time, by the time you're ready to retire, or as Todd puts it, as we dry up and the gigs dry up, when that happens to us, and it happens to all of us, right? When that happens, you'll be prepared to not only survive, but hopefully live a nice lifestyle because you've done this. And so the other concept that I wanted to talk about a little bit, Karen, you mentioned, that you had a great gig before the COVID thing hit and it was canceled. When we do have great gigs, they can pay really well. And when that happens to you, our natural tendency, and this is true with all humans, our natural tendency is to spend it all, right? We start living a little large and we treat ourselves with dining out, and we buy a new car and we buy nice clothes because I haven't bought nice clothes in 10 years and I'm going to buy nice clothes. That's all great. You should reward yourself and enjoy the fruits of your hard work. But at the same time, you need to take a slice of that and think about putting that into your golden army that's going to take care of all of those things in the future. So that's where it gets back to awareness again. But my point here is, though, when you are in a gig that's paying really, really well, you need to take advantage of that and really accelerate building the savings, this golden army. Make sense?
It does.
Definitely.
I love it.
And I would say, one thing too, even more so for entertainers, you mentioned Social Security, JR, and a lot of independent, folks don't pay into the system the same way that you do when you have a regular job. Even when it comes time to file your taxes, and of course, I'm not a tax expert, but you're not putting in the same way that you do because there's a difference between being a contractor and just truly self-employed, and depends upon how you file your taxes.
Right.
Pardon me. So you really can't rely on that Social Security. That is just, and we don't know the future of the system, especially for those that are younger. Obviously we hope it will always be there, or there'll be some system in its place, but it's challenging. Well, I would say that, this has been great. Like, I know we just kind of dipped our toe in the water, and it could seem like a lot, but I think the big takeaways are, you mentioned the S&P 500. You mentioned the EFTs in relation to the.
Let me correct you.
Please,
ETFs,
yes.
right? So
EFT is electronic funds transfer. I'm used to just transferring funds between one zero account and another zero. No, I'm just kidding. But ETF. Thank you.
So let's take this to the last segment of this video, which is JR's golden nuggets, right? The action plans and the lessons that we learned from today's video. And I think Todd is onto something. If you even have a small amount of money and you want to invest for the future, for the long term, going and opening up an account at your favorite brokerage, you can do it online, do it through your phone. And I would recommend that you divide whatever amount of money that you want to put in, halfway, 50% of it into an ETF called SPY. It mirrors the S&P 500, and the other half into an ETF with the symbol QQQ, which is the NASDAQ 100. And if you set it up that way, that whenever you put additional money into that, it automatically gets split 50-50. That's the best way to set up the account. So you don't have to keep making the decision. You need to keep putting money into it. Right. That's one of the things. Another thing is, we touched on an emergency fund, right? That things are going to happen where your gigs dry up, and until you get the next gig, you've got to survive. Yeah. So you have to have an emergency fund. I think the big takeaway from all of this, though, is the awareness. Todd, you were talking about Social Security may not be there decades from now, right? It's a government program. It may shut down. There are no guarantees. But even if it is there, the payouts for artists and independent contractors is probably going to be really, really small compared to someone who's making $300,000 a year for 3 decades, and they're putting a lot of money into the system. Their Social Security payments in retirement are going to be higher than someone who puts in very little. So that's exactly right. Correct. The awareness is that we need to be responsible for our own financial well-being in the future, especially artists who have, gig work and inconsistent income. We need to be aware of this, and we need to take steps. And the biggest step is to start now saving and growing that savings. And in future videos, we're going to talk more specifically about things that you should do to think about that, and how to do it, in specific action steps to take. So if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button. If you know someone who you think may benefit from this information, you think they might like the content of this video also, please share this video with them over any kind of social media. It helps our algorithms. It helps our messages get out there a little louder. And with that, I want to thank you all for joining us. Todd, Karen, any last words for our viewers?
I'm just looking forward to the next time.
And you know what, friends, we'll put as much information in the description as we can. And any links to anything that JR thinks is pertinent for you to read and learn more about. And of course, we're going to, as we move forward, we're just in the beginning stages. We're going to set up something so that you can DM us and ask questions. JR he wants to help. And, he's been helping Todd and I. We've all known each other a long time. And we've had this conversation ongoing. And And I think that it's really important to know that we're here to help. And Todd and I are here to learn because, yeah, we don't know Jack Banana, but
Yeah.
we're
We
learning
hope
it.
we can help by learning along with you. I mean,
Amen
that's our
to
goal,
that.
right? We're learning at the same time, and hopefully we can be initially the voice by asking questions that you probably all have, and we can't wait to get your questions in the mix as well.
Absolutely.
So I want to thank you both for joining me, and I want to thank the viewers for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for watching.